What's up, guys? Mike here, and today we're going to be talking about busts. Now, the internet definition of a bust is a women's... Okay, well, so there's not an exact definition for a bust in sports, but we know what one is. A bust is a high draft pick with huge expectations that does not live up to them at all. Now, with that said, I guess we have some leeway, some space to add in a few more rules. Because today we're talking about the 7 biggest busts of all time, so these busts are more than just guys that didn't live up to expectations. When I'm talking about the biggest busts of all time, I want to add in 2 more rules. The first is that the bust draft class should have very high level guys taken after him, because it's not even really a bust if there's no one good after the player. And second, I want my bust to have no injuries, because injuries are an excuse for why someone wasn't good. We want the 7 biggest busts of all time to have no excuses. They weren't injured, they just sucked. So with that said, these 7 biggest busts of all time. Number 7. Jon Koncak. Jon Koncak is the perfect example of a role player who stuck around the NBA for 10 seasons because he didn't cause any problems and was 7 feet tall. Unfortunately, that's not what you want out of the number 5 pick in the NBA draft. In his 10 years playing in the league, Koncak never averaged over 9 points per game or 7 rebounds per game. Those numbers don't even make him an average backup. They make him below average, as proven by a 7-year run to cap his career where he did not produce a PER over 10. And of course, a real draft bust is solidified by the players drafted after him. And the 1985 draft had plenty of talent taken after Koncak, as 3 Hall of Famers were selected following the 5th pick. The first 2 were even members of the original Dream Team, as Chris Mullin went number 7 and Karl Malone was taken 13th. The final Hall of Famer was 2-time NBA champion Joe Dumars, so Atlanta obviously missed out on some talent. And while all of this certainly makes Koncak a bust, he also earns bonus points for landing one of the most ridiculous contracts in NBA history. At the time, Koncak was so overpaid that he was given this somewhat demeaning nickname John Contract, had a Sports Illustrated article written about him where Jerry West called Koncak's contract disgusting, and caused a young Shaquille O'Neal to give up football based on his salary, with Shaq saying,
Jon Koncak signs for $15 million for 3 years. I was like, I could make $5 million doing the basketball thing. I think I'm gonna switch up now.
So, at least he did something good for the NBA. Number 6. Michael Olowokandi. In the NBA, it is generally accepted that when a veteran player gives you advice, you listen to it. If that veteran player is an all-star, you maybe should write that advice down. If that veteran player is Hall of Famer Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, you might want to tattoo that advice to your face. Okay, a little extreme, but the point is that NBA rookies should try and learn from veterans. Apparently, no one told Michael Olowokandi this, as throughout his rookie season he constantly ignored the advice of Kareem, going as far as telling Kareem not to disrespect him in front of his teammates. And it's not like the Candyman, as he was called, was a basketball expert. In fact, he was most known for not touching a basketball until he was 18 years old, so he had only been playing basketball a few years before he was drafted number 1. This lack of experience and unwillingness to learn led Olowokandi to a forgettable NBA career, as he was overshadowed in his own draft class by 2 future Hall of Famers in Dirk Nowitzki and Paul Pierce. Number 5. Todd Fuller. In his senior year at NC State, Todd Fuller averaged nearly 21 points per game and was offered a Rhodes Scholarship after his collegiate career was over. He should have taken that scholarship because Fuller, the 10th pick in the 1996 draft, clearly belonged in a classroom and not on an NBA court. In his 5-year NBA career, he never averaged over 4.1 points per game and was out of the league at the young age of 26. Meanwhile, in the 96 draft, Fuller was taken 10th, ahead of 2 future Hall of Famers. One of those Hall of Famers was a 2-time MVP. The other was Kobe Bryant. Number 4. Kwame Brown. The number 1 pick in the 2002 NBA draft, Kwame Brown has the honor of being one of the only players to get relentlessly booed by their own fans. Let me emphasize this. Kwame Brown was so bad that his own fans booed him.
Kwame Brown, God bless him, is a scrub.
So How did the first high schooler to ever be drafted number 1 get to this point? Well, for starters, Kwame was 1 year older than everyone else in high school, which allowed him to dominate in a way he might not have if he was playing kids his own age. But perhaps most importantly, he was drafted by the Wizards, a team that was basically ran by Michael Jordan. Now, Jordan was used to the tough and hardworking Bulls teams of his past, so when Kwame Brown began practice and showed signs of softness, Jordan challenged him physically and mentally. By various accounts of people who experienced this, Kwame shrunk away from these challenges, and instead of becoming motivated to succeed, he lost all of his confidence, thus leaving him with a long but unsuccessful NBA career, while Pau Gasol, drafted 2 spots after him, was a multiple-time All-Star and champion. Number 3. Darko Milicic. The list of European busts in the NBA is a long one, and atop that list sits Darko Milicic. Described by Chad Ford before the draft as one of a kind, Darko lived up to these words, becoming the first member of NSYNC to make an NBA roster. He wasn't in NSYNC, you say? Sorry, I got confused by the Frosted Tips. Regardless of his boy band affiliation, Darko earns bonus points as a bust because of his importance to the 2004 Pistons. If they had taken Carmelo Anthony, Dwayne Wade, or Chris Bosh, they may have won multiple NBA titles. Instead, they took a player whose career points per game has been more than doubled by Andrea Bargnani. Ouch. Number 2. Hasheem Thabeet. Now, most prospects on this list came into the NBA with tremendous expectations, only to let down the front office that drafted them. This was not the case with Hasheem Thabeet, as from the second he was drafted, several people were already predicting that he would be a bust. And they were right, as demonstrated by his career 2.2 points per game and 2.7 rebounds per game. In college, Hasheem was able to use his size to become a shot-blocking force. However, his lack of athleticism and overall talent ultimately led to his NBA demise. And making things worse for the Grizzlies, 2 of the players drafted after Hasheem finished number 1 and number 2 in the 2015 MVP race. That's right, when selecting Hasheem, the Grizzlies passed on Steph Curry and James Harden. And number 1, LaRue Martin. Drafted number 1 overall in the 1974 draft, LaRue Martin can only be considered as the Anthony Bennett of his time. And while Bennett still has some years to turn things around, Martin's time was over fast, as he was out of the league in just 4 seasons. Martin is the perfect example of just how basic scouting was during this time period, as the biggest reason he was drafted number 1 by the Trailblazers was that he outplayed Bill Walton in a college matchup. There's a reason scouting is much more advanced now, as the Blazers would LaRue the day they took Martin with the first pick, as he averaged just 5.1 points per game in his short 4-season career. To be clear, discounting injuries, LaRue Martin is the worst number 1 overall pick in the history of the NBA, a fact that is magnified by the selections of Hall of Famers Bob McAdoo and Julius Erving after Martin in the draft. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already subscribed, I highly suggest you do because we're almost at 100,000 subscribers. I just tried to film for like 30 seconds and couldn't speak. I am so happy about this. I just want to say thank you to you guys for all the support. This is crazy. For real, when I started this channel, my ultimate goal was to eventually hit 100,000 subscribers, and we've been gaining so much in the last few months that it's already about to happen, which means, of course, comment down below what you want me to do for 100,000 subscribers. I owe you guys something because you're the reason this happened. It really is true. And as always, guys, have an awesome day, and cue that music.